Introduce now panel number 2, AI, pipe dream or reality. Interesting. Jael Whitney would be one of the panel members. Mike Kaput would be the second one. And Madhavi, let's see, Chakrabarti would be the moderator. Did I say it right? Okay, all right. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And I'm just looking back at the few years of this summit we have had so far and how we've moved from a single physical location to 2 physical locations and the cloud. And maybe in a few years we'll be in the metaverse, right? And thank you, Christina, as well. I just look back to the first AR app I had installed, Stella Artois, sitting as an audience in one of your speeches. And just one thought, if you could replace some of the stock images on your PowerPoints with women like me, Jael, Nelly, that would be really great. Thank you so much. So, again, coming back to our topic, pipe dream or reality, AI in business. I have Jael Whitney here with me, and I have Mike Kaput on the cloud joining us. Jael Whitney has been with IBM for 4 years, holding various business development roles in the Watson AI and sustainability software organizations. She is currently a business development leader for sustainability software. She brings 8 years of experience in digital marketing, graphic design, communications, market research, and content strategy. She is a proud member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and is an active part of the IBM Native American Council. Outside her roles in the tech world, she is also passionate about arts and has done marketing, volunteering with various arts and nonprofits across Massachusetts. She's based out of the greater Boston area. So thank you so much for making the trip down here.
Thank you.
And Mike, the Chief Content Officer at Marketing AI Institute. He uses content marketing, marketing strategy, and marketing technology to grow and scale traffic, leads, and revenue for the Marketing AI Institute. An avid writer, Mike has published hundreds of articles on how to use AI in marketing to increase revenue and reduce costs. He is the co-author of Marketing Artificial Intelligence, AI, Marketing, and the Future of Business. He is also the author of Bitcoin in Plain English. Now, isn't that a reading we all want to read? A beginner's guide to the world's most popular cryptocurrency. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question to both of you is, what generated your interest in this area? Jael?
Yeah, so I was always a very geeky kid, and I was really interested in technology and how it was evolving. And so when I got to undergraduate, I studied marketing at Kansas State University, and I particularly focused on marketing analytics. And so I was working with some of our professors there that were on the cutting edge of research around marketing and technology, and they had started talking about the future of AI and applications in that regard. I also was connected with the American Indian Science and Engineering Society at K-State. And through that, I was able to work with some direct AI researchers and start to learn more about that. So through ACES, I got connected with IBM. And then one of my first roles at IBM was actually to work directly with Watson AI and to start to learn more about how can that be applied in the business world. So from there, that was where my curiosity really grew. And now I've made a full-time profession out of it.
Thank you. And Mike?
Yeah, so I kind of came at AI from an interesting angle. So I'm a marketer and storyteller and a former journalist by trade. So I used to work for a marketing agency, and the founder and CEO of that agency, he started looking into artificial intelligence as a way to drive performance for our clients. So we actually came at it not as machine learning engineers or data scientists, but as, business people trying to solve problems. So we actually started writing about, learning about, and deploying artificial intelligence for clients. And that's kind of where we spun out this Marketing AI Institute business that we have now. But yeah, so I came at it from being really interested in what the technology could do for clients and for some of the executives that we worked with, and seeing some pretty amazing results from using that technology.
And that's so right. We already see a lot of successful applications of AI in the field. So maybe leading on to the next question, Mike, if you want to start us off with, would you like to share any interesting application that maybe you have worked on?
Yeah, it's been it's great we're doing this panel now, because the last 6 to 12 months have been pretty breathtaking in terms of AI progress. I mean, the technology has been progressing pretty rapidly for the last decade or so, but today you can do everything in marketing and business with AI, from writing content, creating images from scratch with no design capabilities, no artistic background. I was actually playing with DALL-E 2 as one of the popular tools today. To do that, it costs you $20 to get hundreds of credits to generate images from scratch, which is incredible. Meta, formerly Facebook, just released Make a Video tool, which you type in a prompt and it will generate high quality video from scratch. So that's still in the research phase, but will very quickly become commercially available. I mean, generative AI in general has been massively impactful in the last 12 months in marketing. But if you're a marketer today or a business person, there are hundreds of ways to use AI to create content, create images, optimize ads, rank better in search, write email subject lines, write emails for you. So many exciting applications today.
Absolutely. Jael?
Yeah, some of the use cases that we see at IBM, we have a solution to actually reserve rooms such as this one via AI and natural language understanding. We also are able to use AI for manufacturing and looking at defects within the products and kind of just automatically identifying those so they can be flagged. And we're also seeing use cases now for sustainability, especially on reporting at the organizational level, what the metrics you're hitting are in terms of ESG, environmental sustainability and governance, and automatically reporting those and tracking all of those. So there's some really cool and diverse use cases there.
Yeah, those are some fascinating use cases. And maybe if you want to stretch the thought a little more, and you kind of touched on one of the big problems, there are several hard and big problems that are facing the world today. What are some of the big problems that you think AI can help us solve?
Yeah, I think especially for marketing organizations, for nonprofits, for all of the shifts that we're seeing from the Great Resignation, one of the problems that we're facing right now is resources, not having enough resources in whatever regard. And so one of the really good use cases of AI is to actually kind of create additional intellectual resources that are available to kind of take over some of those rote tasks so that we can focus more on the complex and human side of the work.
Mm-hmm. Mike?
Yeah, that's an awesome point. I think if you had asked me 18 months ago, like, is AI going to take my job or impact my employment negatively? It's like, there's a lot of valid commentary around that. And I think there's a lot of useful considerations there. But today, it's more, how can this technology augment us, to what Jael was saying? Nobody is worried about AI taking their job anymore, I don't think. I think they're worried about, how do we get enough people or enough resources to achieve our business goals? So I think the augmentation of human intellect and labor by artificial intelligence is going to be monumental.
Well, okay. Thank you for that. My next question is, where do you see AI in the next 5 to 10 years? Mike?
Yeah, this is, I think it was funny when we were prepping, we were like, should we extend the timeline to 20, 30 years? It's impossible to get that far out. It has moved so fast. And especially, like I mentioned, in the last 12 months or so, there have been developments that have surprised people far smarter than me about AI, that they didn't expect us to be where we're at so quickly. So my best prediction is in the next 5 to 10 years, everything you do in any realm of business will in some way be either impacted or augmented by artificial intelligence. So that's the most confidence I can have making a prediction. But I do think that we will 10 years from now be talking about the transition to working hand in hand with machines as if they are colleagues and coworkers in a range of different contexts, in a range of different businesses.
Sounds good. And Jai?
Yeah, going off of that, where we're at now, we're finally at a point where artificial intelligence is able to really artificially create neural networks and use natural language understanding. So the technology is there now. And so from there, what we really haven't seen yet and what is starting to come into the fold is domain specific knowledge. And then that's where we'll start to see more of the applications expanding into your potential job future. I think also the advancements in quantum computing will also impact that as well in the next 5 to 10 years, especially as that starts to explode.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So when we think of AI, when we artificial intelligence, we are basically talking about the engine, the algorithms, etc. And there have been instances in the past where that algorithm has been charged or accused of being biased in many ways. So how are companies taking care of those biases, say age, race, economics, gender, ability, and others that might actually get amplified by some of these algorithms? Jael?
Yes, so IBM actually stopped selling facial recognition software when we learned that it was being used to sort of disproportionately incarcerate Black men. So that's one of the use cases where that technology it's not there yet, so we shouldn't be selling it. And I think on the flip side of that, there are ways which AI can actually help to mitigate bias. IBM specifically, we have some algorithms available publicly and free that are basically intended to help identify and remove biases in your data sets. And so I think as long as we're thinking meaningfully about that and we're implementing policies to make sure that responsible AI is a part of our practice, I think that's something that can be addressed, definitely.
Awesome, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to have Jael on the panel and IBM represented here because they're doing really important work in verifying and regulating this kind of technology. I mean, I think we all have seen examples in the news of companies that don't do as good of a job with that. And it's really going to be up to, in my opinion, the big tech leaders to pave the way on this technology, because we had talked about things like the White House just released an AI Bill of Rights, which is not a legally binding document, but more guidance on how companies and people should engage with this technology. And we'll maybe talk about that a little later, but it's really going to be the burden will be on the companies to do the right thing and have the right ethics and have the right people like Jael, like influencing this technology for the better. And it is critical that every company developing this technology does that, because otherwise it is very, very difficult from the top down to regulate the explosive kind of impact that artificial intelligence can have on businesses and societies.
Awesome, thank you. The next question. So there's a fear that artificial intelligence will impact labor, jobs, and worker in general. How severe is the issue, the fear, and actually what are the facts? And I know, Mike, you touched upon this a little bit initially. So if you want to take this question first.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell because, like I said, nobody right now, given the labor market, is worried about AI taking jobs. They're trying to figure out how to fill positions that are not being filled. Obviously, that could change depending on our economic climate and how things go moving forward. The best way I've seen this put is actually by our founder and CEO, Paul Raitzer, who wrote a post about this some time ago. And he saw this great tweet where somebody was responding to DALL-E 2, the AI art generation tool. And musing on kind of what does this mean for somebody who has built their entire skill set, for instance, around design or art or what have you. And they put it this way. They said, look, like what is lost and what is gained with this technology? And by that, they mean something is always lost. When you have AI that can generate images, for instance, from scratch, that's obviously going to negatively impact in some ways the economic earning power of someone that generated those images previously, right? But what is gained? What can that artist now do with their time? How does their job evolve? How does that role and the economic value of it evolve? It could be very positive in many cases. So I think that we're going to see moving forward a very big rebalancing of how certain creative and cognitive tasks work. And I don't think it's going to necessarily mean like we sit here and say, oh, wow, AI took the job of that million people that do that job. It's more going to be, wow, the job of an artist or a marketer has really changed in the last 5 or 10 years, thanks to machine learning. So I would say it's a change. We're going to see in the labor market a big evolution, I would say, of cognitive tasks.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jed?
Yeah, I think at a system level, anytime there is an introduction of a new technology like cars or anything like that, there's going to be some new jobs created and there are going to be some jobs eliminated. I think at the individual level, it's an anxiety question. Is this going to impact me? It might, depending on what domain you're going into. And so what do you do about that? You research the tool, you understand how are people in my industry using this tool? What skills do I need to be building right now to make sure that I can be successful in a world where this tool might be a part of my role. So I think those are the things that can be addressed in that concern.
Awesome, thank you. My next question is actually inspired by work I was doing with a student last semester who happened to be a marketing major and a music minor. She used Magenta AI and the neural networks to scrape data from Spotify to advise her on what a good song should sound like. And she used the lyric generator to actually inspire some of the words that went into her song. She created her own song, released it on Spotify, and the number of streams in the first 1 week were 300% of the songs she had done on her own. And the time to create the song was 4 hours as compared to multiple days that she would use to generate her song. And so it was a fascinating piece of work. We authored a paper based on that. And I presented the paper at the Atlantic Marketing Conference. The overall reception was amazing, except for one specific audience who brought up the idea of, someone's going to sue her for that. And so, my next question is basically that. There is a gap, there is sort of a gray area that exists each time a new technology comes into the picture. An existing gap in terms of laws, legal implications, etc. Given the maturity of AI applications that we see today, what are some of the legal, regulatory, and policy changes we should be aware of? Jael?
Yeah, I think IBM is definitely aware of this problem and we're working to address it. I think because of the rate of innovation, it definitely needs government regulation, but honestly, a lot of the responsibility and the burden is on private organizations and public organizations that can move more quickly to address, okay, how are we going to mitigate these challenges? How are we going to promote fair and open use of data, but also kind of maintain our own intellectual property and ask those questions and find out what the most socially beneficial answer is to those questions. IBM specifically, we have published some policies around this that we kind of guide our own decision-making processes with. But I think that we also work closely with the US government to understand what their thinking is around the future of AI and how can we make sure that it's going to be mutually beneficial for everybody involved.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I'll tackle this from a slightly different perspective, from like the businesses trying to use artificial intelligence. There are a lot of unresolved considerations required that are legal and regulatory. So I think if you're a brand, if you're an executive, a marketing or business leader, adopting this technology, it's critical that you do so, but it's also critical that you ask the right questions up front, because not everyone, IBM is an awesome leader in this space and doing this the right way. Not every tool or technology does it the right way. Yet, because the rate of innovation, like JL says, is so fast, you could very well be using tools or data sets or capabilities that are not exactly what you want to be associated with as a brand. So it's really important, I think, from a regulatory and legal perspective, that brands start doing their due diligence on this technology, because frankly, like aside from leaders like IBM, like nobody is going to do it for you. It's moving so fast that you're going to have to figure out your own legal and ethical policies towards AI.
Thank you. Sounds good. So my final question to both of you is going to be the same, what Eric mentioned. What is your advice for our students? What should they learn in order to be ready for this new world? Mike?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say my biggest piece of advice would be understanding that regardless of what you do or what your interests are, this technology will impact you. And that can sound scary, and there's certainly some scary implications of it. But in a lot of ways, it's very positive, because really at the end of the day, like I shared with my own background, you do not need to be a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. If those are interests of yours, awesome. Those are great fields. But if you are more creatively inclined or more of a business person, entrepreneur, like you can understand this stuff. It is a complex topic, but it is not inaccessible. So I would strongly argue that students today just go try out some of these tools. I mean, they're extremely affordable and or free. They will get more affordable. You have an incredible opportunity, actually. I mean, I am extremely jealous that this technology was not around when I was in college. And I'm, 36. I don't think I'm that old yet, but it's incredible the opportunities you have to create in new ways, to innovate in new ways, and to build things in new ways using this technology. And the best way to start that knowledge is getting started with it.
Thank you, Jael.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely getting hands-on experience with the tools is important. I think going along with that, it's very important to kind of zoom out and get a systems thinking perspective. The tool that I'm learning today might be obsolete in 5 years, but the process that I'm using this tool, the way that I'm using this tool to solve problems, that kind of thinking is going to continue to be relevant even as the tools themselves change. So I think just being able to enter an environment and understand, okay, here's the problems I'm trying to address, here's the ways we currently address it, here are the ways we could potentially address it, and starting to learn about those types of systems thinking, that will be really beneficial in this technological world. I think another thing that's really helpful is to surround yourself with people that are working in those industries. So for example, if you have a Twitter account, following people that are doing innovative research and talking about AI will help you just by osmosis to start to absorb some of the terminology, some of the ways of thinking, some of the questions and concerns and things we need to be thinking about. All of that will come up within that environment and that particular social group.
Yeah, I actually would just say, to add to that, that's a really incredible point that I neglected to mention, is that the way you think about these problems is often much more important than what you're using to solve the problems, right? Because yeah, the technology moves so fast that I'm talking about how cool DALL-E 2 is today. Tomorrow, it could be obsolete. We don't know. If you are inclined at all towards any type of business or creative pursuit, learning how to think about problems algorithmically, I think, is really important. And a really good book for this is called The Algorithmic Leader by Mike Walsh. It's an incredible book that gives essentially the steps for thinking about these problems rather than saying use this technology or that technology. So learning how to think in an algorithmic world as a human and create value is extremely valuable, I would say.
Perfect. I really like that. So, consider it a means, not an end. Each of these tools, AI tools, are a new tool in our arsenal that we use to solve problems, not necessarily for the sake of using a new tool. Thank you very much. I think, do we have more time? Can I open it up to the audience? 9, okay, perfect. So shall we open it up to the audience and see if there are other questions? Yes, Christina.
And I want everyone to keep this in mind. Hi. I wanted to say how excellent this panel was, and I want everyone to think this way. AI, or human machine collaboration. AI is your greatest collaborator going forward for several reasons. One, we all look to the machines to tell us everything. They are content, we are context. Two, we're going to find out how many robotic jobs we've been doing for far too long. Folks, you're precious. Your brains need to offload robotic jobs to the robots, exactly like the accountants were like, this is amazing. With Excel, something was automated. And what happened? They made more money because they could spend more time with their customers and less adding digits. Just like ATMs replaced tellers. And guess what? They became mortgage representatives and the like. So just think of it that way. Everything they've said here is excellent. And just start thinking, how can I collaborate with AI so I'm less of a robot and working at the top of my talents? So it was really like a statement, not a question. But I'm big on action points. So there you go.
Nice. Thank you. That was valuable too. Anyone else? Dr. Chai.
AI as a black box, there's an input, there's an output. Output might be a decision, or it might be a creation of some contents, but it all depends on the kind of input that you put in. So how do you, like if you're big firms, then probably it's going to be okay. Establishing the association between the input and output, you just provide that in the training process. But if you are like in small fish in this pond, then how do you gather the relevant information, sufficient information to come out of some relevant and compatible solutions?
Yeah, I think as the advancements are made in the technology itself, I think the data sets that are required are starting to shrink because some of the associations are there. I think honestly, even the lines between input and output are blurring a bit too as the technology evolves. And I would say if you're at that level of resource where you have a smaller amount available, I think then again, the human question is going to be the most important. What are you trying to accomplish? And then from there, how do you want to accomplish that? What are the values guiding that from the human perspective? And then those inputs are going to be the most important part of that particular technological process.
Awesome, thank you. Mike, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is a really important question for most, if not all of the businesses that we work with. If you're a larger business, right, you probably have access to better data sets, more data, and the talent that can help you get the most out of that. But if you're smaller, it can be kind of up in the air. And that's why I think it's really, really, really important for anyone of any size business to be asking the right questions of AI vendors that they're buying technology from. Because realistically, like for instance, Marketing AI Institute is a 5-person company at the moment. We're not building artificial intelligence technology for ourselves. That would be prohibitively expensive, time consuming, and frankly, we wouldn't be that good at it. But we are routinely purchasing and using tools that use either proprietary or publicly available data sets to achieve their goals. And they're sometimes magical and miraculous tools for our business, but you have to ask the right questions of where is that data coming from? What are those inputs? Because kind of to the regulatory and ethics question, at the end of the day, it's on you. I mean, there are a lot of vendors out there that are amazing. There's a lot, however, that are not using data in the right way, that are not ethically using the technology. It's on you as a business leader to ask the right questions of those vendors upfront and understand as best you can, where is that data coming from? What is that input?
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any questions on Zoom?
So I'm actually seeing one here. Can you mention some sites where students can have access to experience AI tools?
Do you want to take that, Mike?
Sure. So I would say a few that are really important to start experimenting with are anything in the what we would call generative AI category. So anything that can write or draw or create video is really accessible right now and just fun to play around with, but also really important to understand. So a few that I will mention, DALL-E 2 by OpenAI. You can get access to it today. Go experiment with a tool like that. There's a tool called Jasper.ai that will write content for you. It's certainly not perfect, but it is really important to experiment with how this stuff is changing the way we create content. So I would say writing and image generation tools are in abundance. I would test out those absolutely, because those will change how your work works moving forward.
Thank you. Jad?
Yeah, and I think poking around on sites like GitHub as well, just to kind of understand the language and what's going into those tools and what's behind the scenes, I think that can also be helpful as well to understand how they work.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Perfect. We will take one more question in the room. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming out. So a lot of my friends have DALL-E 2 or Midjourney, and we love playing around with all of these wonderful image creators. But of course, we're always limited by how well we can create these prompts. But we always have these same questions of where are they getting the data to create all of these images from? And when we Google something, Google a lot of images, there are a lot of pictures that come up, and we think that maybe DALL-E has access to some of these search engines as well. But of course, there are huge regulatory concerns with making these pictures, and there are privacy concerns about using people's faces in those pictures as well. And so when companies are profit incentivized to make the best, most creative AIs possible for us to use, what sort of policy regulations are we looking at in the future that are going to be enacted by either the federal or state governments to limit these AI generative software?
Yeah, so I'm also a glitch artist, which is something, basically you make art out of glitches. And a lot of the images I use, I created them myself or I'm taking something from online. Right now, Creative Commons, the way it's set up is if there's a certain number of deviations from the original image, you're good to go. And so I think that's kind of it'll be a similar line of thinking in that regard. How unrecognizable is the previous source material? In the same way that like a collage from a magazine would be applied the same way. To what extent is it no longer recognizable from its original form? I think that's one of the questions that I would be asking.
Perfect, thank you. And Mike?
Yeah, I think this is, for me personally, a really tough question because it's going to depend on a couple of things. One is the appetite of governments to regulate this technology. You see in several European governments a much more strict policy towards artificial intelligence tools. From my knowledge, the US is like not as strict as that, though we do have, state by state certain data regulations. I think we're going to see some weird landmark like court cases around some of these at some point, because I'm not a legal expert. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but at some point somebody is going to sell $1 million piece of art that's in the style of someone who's still alive, and they're going to sue them at some point. I don't know what the outcome will be, but I would be shocked if we don't see at least a few really, really high profile cases about who owns what and how much of a style of art, for instance, do you actually own versus what is art. So it'll be fascinating, but I don't think it'll be easy to resolve. At
this conference, sorry. It seems like a solution for blockchains, right? And have that attribution, which would be good for companies, anyone. I'm asking the question though, when we talk about data And when we look to port over data for us to own, what I was talking about, how much that can feed into AI, because we'll allow it if it works for us. So I think that could be a possibility. I have an action point to study that now. But to your point, I would think we would use the new technology that can prove where it comes from and who we owe for it if we do owe for it. I may be in the wrong conference or I may not, but I think, do something like that. And when you do it, give us a percentage. 5%.
Thank you. Thank you again, Jael and Mike. This was really interesting. And I got to learn a lot from both of you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.